Representative Stacey Evans to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Thomas talked about how this is unnecessary, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that too, but let me start by very clearly telling you how this legislation is unnecessary to take care of what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. If you have any inkling in your mind that you are doing this to protect Ahmaud Arbery or future Ahmaud Arbery's, let me dispel you of that myth right now. The voters took care of the district attorney who did not look out for Ahmaud Arbery. The voters. This is unnecessary litigation, unnecessary legislation. Forgot where I was for a second. Unnecessary legislation that will cost this state $850,000 a year. This legislation would have us spend nearly $1 million a year to try to discipline a group of elected officials that are already subject to discipline for violations of law or ethics. As we've talked about a little bit already, if a DA violates the law, our state laws take care of that. Prosecutors are already subject to state bar disciplinary rules, which are at this moment, at their own request, getting stronger. The state bar has disbarred 2 district attorneys when misconduct warranted it. District attorneys are policed. This legislation would have us spend, again specifically, $850,000 a year to deal with complaints that might be brought against 115 elected officials. That's because we have 49 elected district attorneys, 66 elected solicitor generals. That's all this bill applies to, those specific 115 people. Over $7,000 a year, $7,391 a year per person for oversight. People that are already subject to oversight by the state bar, by state law, and by the voters. To put that money in perspective, ladies and gentlemen, that's more than each of us gets every year to run our office that's supposed to serve roughly 80,000 Georgians. Same amount of money for 115 people. We could use this money elsewhere. I've talked about our office budgets, but let's talk about our judicial system. We had Chief Justice Harold Melton here a little bit ago giving us the state of the judiciary. He told us about the backlog of cases and other needs that the judicial system had. I think there are places where we can put this money to better use, a place where it's actually been requested by the system. We've talked about the law overseeing these folks. We've talked about the state bar. We've talked about the voters. The same voters that oversee us, do we not trust them to oversee their elected district attorneys and solicitors general? This legislation would have us create a bureaucratic, unelected group of people who could remove a district attorney or solicitor general from office who is duly elected by the people. Unelected people coming in and erasing your votes. Have we not had to talk enough about the sanctity of a vote and what it means? Now we're going to erase votes in favor of attorneys general and solicitor generals across this state. We've talked about if you break the law, we've got something for that. If you break an ethical law, we've got something for that. So what is this oversight commission actually supposed to do? I will tell you, political oversight. That's where this is headed. Don't like how a district attorney exercised his or her prosecutorial discretion? You think she said something too liberal or too conservative? Send it to the Oversight Commission. That's dangerous. Here's what the law says. You could make a complaint against somebody if they have a stated policy, written or otherwise, that demonstrates that the district attorney or solicitor general categorically refuses to prosecute any offense or offenses of which he or she is required by law to prosecute. Required by law to prosecute. Because it's a law in a book, are they required to prosecute it? Do they not have prosecutorial discretion? Are we erasing that? Some of you in here may think, well, if a prosecutor isn't charging marijuana possession charges, maybe they should be brought before the commission. Or if a prosecutor isn't charging the death penalty, maybe they should be brought before the commission. But stay with me for a second. What about a prosecutor that isn't going to prosecute any illegal firearm possession charges? You ready to bring them before the commission for oversight? What about a prosecutor that refuses to bring charges against any church that refuses to close its doors during a state emergency? Are you going to bring that prosecutor before the Oversight Commission? Because you see, it works both ways. Justice Melton, again, gave us the state of judiciary a little bit ago. I don't recall him telling us that there was any want of prosecution of laws in this state. What I heard him say is that we have a backlog of criminal trials to try when the courthouse is reopened. I didn't hear him say that he had concern that our prosecutors were not bringing cases and that our laws were not being enforced. How about we listen to the leaders? One other point I want to address. You say we have an extra oversight committee for judges. Certainly the law takes care of them when they break a law. Certainly the state bar could come after them for ethical problems. But we have this extra judicial oversight committee for judges. And I would say, you're right. But I would also say this is not at all the same thing. You see, judges are checks against us passing unconstitutional laws and against prosecutors who bring cases that lack evidence. The Judicial Oversight Commission watches the watchers. Prosecutors are not watchers. They are watched by the law, by the state bar, by judges, and by the people who elected them. That is plenty. The presenter who started us off here talked about how prosecutorial oversight through this commission is critical, very critical. We've got to have this. So critical, ladies and gentlemen, that we have survived the entirety of the history of our state without it. We don't need it today. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in voting against Senate Bill 218. I yield the will.
Chair recognizes